Gents, let's now switch focus and focus on the US women's national team. Have their expectations changed, or are expectations of them changed at the World Cup? I mean, the 1-1 draw against the Netherlands, it showed a few of the weaknesses and maybe some of the things that we were a little bit concerned about going into the tournament. What is the feeling right now around the US women's national team and their hopes of a three-peat, Andy? Because you laughed a bit there, so I feel like you're thinking it's a little bit too early for this chat. But there was some criticism of the coaching, maybe the tactics, some of the personnel out there. It was good to get this test early on against the Netherlands to really, really see where they're at.
Yeah, the discourse around the U.S. women's national team is always rational. It's always level-headed. It's always logical, and just the same way that it does for the men's team, right? Look, I don't think you can change expectations based on the first two games of a group stage. I think historically, if you look at tournaments and the World Cup specifically, teams that play their best game in the first game and/or the second game usually don't win the World Cup. They usually don't win the European Championship. They usually don't win these big tournaments because I don't know if they peak too early, but there is more to come still from this U.S. women's national team. There's still Rose Lavelle to come back to full fitness, hopefully, we hope, fingers crossed for that, and really push this team forward so that they have a creative engine in the midfield or even anywhere in the final third. Sophia Smith can only score kind of so many solo goals, I think, during a tournament to carry this team. And so there's a lot more to come from this team still. And I think they know that. I think we need to know that as well. And we need to remember that you don't want to put your best performance forward 2 games into the group. You want to do that in the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and be at your very best for the finals. And obviously this is a team that has been there before. A lot of the players have, a lot of the players haven't, but the experience of those veterans, I think, is going to show at some point in this tournament. It might be the third group game when there's a bit of rotation in the team and we get some of them on the field. We'll see. But at my main point being, let's just be patient. Let's take a little bit of time. Let's see how the group stage finishes up. Let's see what the knockout draw ends up looking like. And then we can really be critical if I don't know if Vlatko Andonovski makes 1 sub, and he should make a lot more, and it's very clear. Like, there are issues with this team. I'm not saying everything is perfect by any means, but let's be a little bit patient, I think, because, again, they have won the World Cup 2 times in a row. They've been there before.
Nick, what are some of the issues that they're facing then? Because Andy mentioned it there, Rose Lavelle nursing an injury, just recovering. Megan Rapinoe as well, similar. And missing some big experienced players, and maybe that's my biggest takeaway from the US so far, that in previous World Cup tournaments they've just had those players who've been there, done it, got the t-shirt, as I like to say, and just kind of know how to navigate these experiences. And there is a lot of youth on this US team, which is good. Like Andy said, throughout the tournament it could get better, but in some regards we're seeing a negative side of that a little bit in games right now.
Yeah, I think so. I guess I get a little bit confused. In Vlatko Andonovski, we're going to see someone who will know. I mean, he's had tremendous success as a coach of this team, but honestly felt like he was handpicked by the players to be their coach. And so when you don't win in that situation, especially with some new directors involved, I think he'll be feeling the pressure, and it'll be interesting to see how he reacts going into this game against Portugal, because first place is not assured. They can win and not finish in first because the Netherlands plays Vietnam. And I think the question becomes what did he take away? Because the Netherlands came out in that 3-5-2 and they won the midfield. And I think Andonovski will have learned they've lost to Spain recently, so they've lost to good teams before. Drawing the Netherlands, he will have learned something about his team. And is that something that I can't just assume that my 4-3-3, I'm better than everybody else and I'm the number 1 team in the world, is going to work? And that's what I want to see. I still expect they'll be fine because we haven't had the Alex Morgan game yet. Trinity Rodman's looked good, but hasn't finished. We haven't seen Lynn Williams. We haven't seen a lot of players because he made 1 sub and it was, hey, I'm going to put in potentially the best playmaker on the team, Rose Lavelle, and get it done. Assuming that she is okay to start, how is he going to look at the back line? Is this a situation where a Kelly O'Hara being in there calms them down? Julie Ertz not really being a center back. Is Alana Cook a better fit there? I think he's got a lot of questions to answer. the fact of the matter is, though, he could roll out the same team and be fine because they're the number one team in the world.
Yeah, I think, Sauerbrunn missing is a big miss, I think, just at the back there. So the longer this tournament goes on, the more we're going to learn about Vlatko and the US women's national team as well, because a lot of these players will be untested when we get down to the pressure situation of knockout stages at the World Cup. And when we look at that, Andy, I know you've been sort of our bracket guru at PST here, trying to figure out the path for the US women's national team. If, like Nick mentioned, even if they win against Portugal, but Netherlands smashes Vietnam and wins the group on goal difference, that opens up a very different path for the US. I mean, they'd probably face Sweden, right? Am I correct in thinking that in the last 16? Which that wouldn't be easy. Not a great Swedish team, but a solid Swedish team, you have to say. So there is a lot of pressure maybe after that draw against the Netherlands. And again, I think earlier on in the tournament, we're about to find out just how good this US team is.
Yeah, the threat of finishing second is, it's not great. You probably have to go through 2 top 10 or top 12 teams in the world just to get to the semifinals. If you are able to win the group, you can kind of avoid any of that until you get to the semifinals. So it's a very, very different draw based on whoever wins this group. But it's a good pressure to have early in the tournament. It's good to have some stakes early in the tournament. I think we all know the U.S. women's national team is going through to the knockout rounds of this tournament. But now that they have something on the line in this third group game beyond getting out of the group, it becomes to feel really, really like a knockout tournament for this team. And they can kind of almost flip that mentality and lock in and say, okay, this next game is our tournament for all intents and purposes, and almost make it, 5 finals between now and the end of the World Cup, because it is very hard, as I was saying earlier, and I think we've all kind of alluded to it. It's hard to play your best game 7 times in a knockout tournament. It's hard to do it in any competition, aside from Manchester City, I suppose. And so to have that expectation, I think, would be unrealistic. Let's let them grow in this tournament, beginning with the final group game against Portugal, that they do need to win. They need to win by a fairly sizable margin, probably.
Yeah, it is interesting, though. The question at the top, have expectations changed? I don't think they have. I think we all still expect them to win this tournament. But I think if you had to put it on a percentage, it's probably gone from, in my opinion, 90% to maybe 80 or 85 in terms of how I'm thinking, how likely it is. So just a few more questions and issues, like Nick mentioned there, that need answering. But I'm sure we will get some good answers against Portugal and in the knockout rounds coming up.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.